Wait, what? I exclaimed, whipping my head around to face my wife, Joyce. What did you just say? I asked, unable to believe my ears. Jake, I know you're probably going to be upset, but I'm not happy right now, and I'm considering a trial separation for us. I need some time to clear my head and figure out what I want, Joyce explained to me as I stood on the deck, grilling steaks. When were you planning on telling me this, Joyce? Or were you just going to leave a note on my pillow tonight? I retorted, my voice escalating more than it should have. Don't raise your voice, Jake. I don't want Marty overhearing our conversation, she cautioned, referring to our 6-year-old son. I knew you'd react like this, which is why I wanted to wait until tonight to discuss it. So, essentially, you've already made up your mind to leave. Are you planning on telling Marty yourself, or should I break the news after you're gone? I said, dripping with sarcasm. I'll tell him tonight before bed. And remember, this isn't necessarily permanent, she reassured me. Right, you're moving in with your friend Leslie. I should have seen this coming, I snapped, my anger escalating. I'll draw up the paperwork tomorrow. You can sign it, and I'll file it with the court by Wednesday, Joyce. What paperwork? Joyce questioned. Well, if you're leaving, I want it to be a legal separation. That way, if you don't return, it will automatically convert to a divorce decree. We won't have to go through the hassle twice, I explained, my frustration evident. I don't want a divorce, Jake, just some time to myself to sort things out, that's all, Joyce replied calmly. That's bullshit, Joyce. I retorted sharply. I've been asking you to talk to me for the past 4 months, but you've been too wrapped up with Leslie and your new friends to spare a moment. And now you want to move in with Leslie, your new best friend, so you could do whatever you've been itching to do for the past 6 months. I yelled, my frustration boiling over. Well, you're not going to do it with my blessing, and I refuse to stand by and be made a fool of by you or anyone else, I said, slamming the grill top down. This wasn't how Joyce had envisioned the conversation going. She knew Jake would be upset, but she had hoped to persuade him that this could be a growth opportunity for both of them. Instead, it had blown up in her face. Jake, please, Joyce pleaded, but he stormed off in a huff, leaving her alone at the grill. She removed the steaks, placing them on the counter, then went in search of him. She found Jake upstairs in their bedroom, furiously tossing all her belongings into the spare room. Take your belongings and get out of here. I've had enough, I yelled in frustration. I'll have the divorce papers sent to your office. You can sign them and return them to Michael, the lawyer I've been using for the past 6 years. Don't worry about Marty. I'll take him out for dinner so he doesn't have to witness his mother leaving, I added, grabbing my coat and my son before heading out to the car. Leslie, it's Joyce, she began on the phone, her voice starting to crack. Jake didn't handle it well at all. He's threatening me with divorce. I told you he wouldn't take it lightly, but don't worry, he'll come around soon, Leslie reassured her. In a few weeks, he'll be begging for you to come back, and then you'll have the upper hand. I hope you're right, Leslie, because right now he's ready to kick me out and file for divorce, Joyce admitted. I need some time away, but I don't want to end our marriage. I'll come over and help you pack, Leslie offered. The sooner you're on your own, away from him, the sooner you can figure out what you truly want. With Leslie's assistance, Joyce swiftly packed up most of her belongings and left the house before Jake and Marty returned. I had seen this coming for a while. Joyce and I were both accountants and had met 8 years ago while auditing a company that had gone bankrupt. We were representing different banks with stakes in the failed company. Over the course of the audit, we grew close, enjoying lunches and dinners together every night. By the end of the week, we realized we had developed strong feelings for each other. Joyce was 6.5 feet tall, with brown hair and weighed about 175 pounds. She had a pretty face, but was a little overweight. Jake was 6 and 8 feet tall, weighed about 195 pounds, and at 22 he already had a pretty big belly from overeating every day. These two weirdos were made for each other. 4 months after tying the knot, Joyce found herself expecting, and 8 months later, she was deep into a challenging pregnancy. Bedridden for the last 5 months, she gained a significant amount of weight, tipping the scales at almost 250 pounds by the time Marty arrived. Throughout it all, I never uttered a word of complaint. My love for her transcended any physical changes. We were a contented family, until one day when Joyce overheard a conversation between two of her coworkers. "She's so attractive," one remarked. "It's a shame she's as large as a house. I wonder if she gets her clothes custom-made at Omar, the tent maker's dress shop," she joked. While they might have found it amusing, Joyce was deeply hurt. In tears, she sought solace in the bathroom where Leslie found her. "Are you okay, Joyce?" she asked, concerned. "Everyone thinks I'm a fat pig," Joyce confessed through sobs. "If they only knew how hard I've struggled to lose weight, they wouldn't be so cruel." "Listen, all you need is to commit to a good diet and join a gym," Leslie encouraged. "You're a beautiful woman underneath all that, but you need to make up your mind and take action." And so Joyce made the decision to change. Given my connection to the gym through my accounting work, we secured a fantastic membership deal and joined the following week. With the gym offering childcare services, we were able to bring Marty with us after work, allowing us both to focus on our fitness goals. Joyce was on a relentless mission, hitting the gym 6 days a week, while I struggled to make it 3 nights. When her efforts didn't yield immediate results, she sought a doctor's help and obtained a prescription for diet pills. Though I wasn't entirely comfortable with it, Joyce was determined to shed the weight. 8 months later, Joyce had transformed, slimming down to a stealth 125 pounds. With her newfound confidence, she splurged on a whole new wardrobe, earning compliments from everyone, including her male colleagues. However, the attention she received sparked trouble. At Joyce's company Christmas party, things took a turn for the worse. She wore a revealing dress and found herself the center of attention, particularly from her male coworkers. Reveling in the admiration, Joyce indulged in multiple kisses under the mistletoe, unaware of the hands that roamed freely over her body. Concerned, I intervened, insisting it was time to leave. Reluctantly, Joyce complied, but not without causing a scene. "Joyce, I'm leaving right now, with or without you," I finally asserted, sensing her anger. As we made our way home, tensions escalated into a heated argument. "Tonight, you behaved recklessly, letting those men paw at you while you did nothing to stop them," I exclaimed, frustrated by her obliviousness to the situation. "It was just harmless fun, nothing serious," Joyce insisted. "Not from my perspective," I countered. "How would you feel if I were all over some other woman, kissing and groping her?" I questioned, realizing she was too intoxicated to comprehend. That night, Joyce fell ill, fortunately removing her new dress before vomiting. The following morning, she looked worse for wear and apologized, promising it wouldn't recur. Yet it did, just not in my presence. Subsequently, Joyce began frequenting Tony's for Girls night out after work on Wednesdays. Initially, she returned home by 6:30, but as time passed, her outings extended to 7:30 and eventually close to 9 p.m. By then, Marty was asleep, and my patience wore thin. In our early marriage, we spent ample time in bed, exploring each other. Now, it seemed a weekly occurrence, if that. One thing was certain. When Joyce returned home on Wednesday nights, she was indisputably in the mood, and tonight was no different. Initially, neither of us had much experience, and we approached intimacy cautiously. Over time, we learned each other's preferences and incorporated new techniques. However, every week when Joyce returned home, she seemed eager to try something novel and adventurous, leaving me to wonder where she got such ideas. We had a great time in bed that day. "Damn, I really needed that," she told me. "But I think I'm going to be sore for a week," she added with a laugh, rolling over onto her back. I moved closer, kissed her on the lips, and expressed my happiness at being married to her. It had been like that before, until this week. Upon returning home after dinner with Marty, I found the house empty. "That woman Leslie," I muttered to myself. Ever since Joyce shed those pounds, Leslie's been pushing her into all sorts of things. No wonder her husband left her. She's nothing but trouble, and now she's influencing my wife too. I got Marty ready for bed, tucked him in, and read him a story. When he asked about his mother, I simply told him, "Mommy's away visiting and will be back in a couple of days," though I didn't believe it myself. Heading downstairs, I dialed my mom and filled her in. Mom, can you look after Marty during the day until I find a permanent solution? I requested. Honey, Joyce will snap out of it and be back by the end of the week. You know her. She can't bear to be away from Marty for long, Mom reassured me. I'll be there before you leave for work to watch him. I hope she was right, but deep down, I wasn't as confident as my mom. On Monday, I contacted Michael and told him that Joyce had left me. I want to make sure I have full protection, including permanent custody of Marty. I want the agreement to clearly state that if either of us does something that a married spouse should not do, the other will get 65% of the entire estate. I think she wants to cheat on me, and I want to confirm that, I told Michael. I want the agreement to last 60 days, after which it will become a divorce decree. And can you do that by tomorrow? I asked. Isn't this a bit premature, Jake? She just left, and you're already considering divorce papers, Michael questioned. Joyce has likely been planning this for some time, and perhaps this will make her reconsider. If not, I can't risk losing everything I've worked for just because she wants to explore an affair, I explained. All right, Jake, I'll handle it today and arrange for her to be served at work tomorrow. Anything else? Michael asked. Nothing else comes to mind at the moment. I just need to make it clear to her what's at stake. Also, Michael, I'll need 2 other agreements drawn up, but those can wait. I'll fax you the details later this week, I concluded. The following Tuesday, Joyce arrived at work feeling somewhat down. It was the longest she had been away from Marty and Jake in 8 years. Returning from lunch, she was informed that a man was waiting in her office. Joyce Spencer, he inquired. Yes, I'm Joyce. What can I do for you? She replied. You have been served, he stated, handing her a manila envelope. For the next half hour, Joyce meticulously reviewed the conditions and property divisions outlined in the separation decree, although it read more like actual divorce paperwork. It specified that Jake would have temporary but full custody of Marty, while Joyce would be granted visitation with reasonable notice. By the time she finished reading, she felt more hurt than angry. I've only been gone for 2 days, and Jake's already given up on our marriage, she muttered to herself. Attempting to reach Jake proved futile. His secretary informed her he was out for the day, and his cell phone went straight to voicemail. Unbeknownst to her, Jake was at home changing the locks, managing their finances, and removing Joyce's name from his insurance in 401k. By 4 o'clock, I had wrapped up my tasks and switched on my cell phone. Damn, I muttered to myself, noticing 12 missed calls from Joyce. Deleting them all, I proceeded to have dinner with Marty at my mother's house, where I shared what I had done. Joyce is going to be furious, Jake. I know I would be in her shoes. How far do you plan to take this? My mother inquired. All the way, Mom, I responded firmly. I can't salvage this marriage alone, especially since Joyce refuses to listen to reason. So I've raised the stakes. She initiated this mess, but I'll be the one to end it if I discover she's been unfaithful. I used to trust her, but right now, I wouldn't believe a word she says. Right now, I'm prioritizing the well-being of my son and myself. If we reconcile, that's great. If not, I'll be holding all the cards. Son, I've never seen this side of you. Remind me never to get on your bad side, my mother remarked with a laugh. Meanwhile, Joyce arrived at her house and attempted to use her key. What the hell? She muttered upon discovering the new lock. Damn him. Dialing Jake's number once more, she encountered the same voicemail prompt and left another message. Reviewing my checklist, I reassured myself that everything was now in place. All I can do is wait, I thought. Wednesday morning found Joyce at Jake's office. My credit cards won't work, and they told me I no longer have insurance when I tried to pick up my prescription on the way to work. Do you hate me that much, Jake? She questioned. Just covering my bases, Joyce. Remember, you walked out on me. I'll cover all household expenses and Marty's needs, but you'll have to manage your own finances from now on. That way, we won't have any financial disputes, Jake explained calmly. Jake, you're letting this spiral out of control, Joyce shouted, frustration evident in her tone. I just needed some time to myself, that's all. Leaning over my desk, I adopted a serious and deadpan expression. Joyce, do you see the word stupid tattooed across my forehead? I may not be the most astute guy, but I wasn't born yesterday. Leslie has turned your head so much that you can't seem to find your way. You think you can act like you're single again without consequences. Think again. The moment I discover you've broken your marital vows, it's over. Hell, you probably already have, so I don't even know why we're having this conversation. I'm so furious right now that I can't see straight, so I suggest you leave before I say something that will destroy what's left of our marriage, I stated firmly before sinking back into my chair. Joyce was taken aback and quickly grew defensive. You can't treat me like a child. I'm an equal partner in this marriage, so screw you, she spat back. Well, that hasn't been the case much in the last 6 months either, but I guess you're getting all the attention you can handle now on the side, I retorted just loud enough for Joyce to hear. With that, she stormed out. I knew she hadn't gone all the way yet, but she had come close. You see, I had started having her followed on Wednesdays about a month ago. There had been a lot of flirting and physical contact, but it hadn't gone any further. I wanted to make sure Joyce understood the consequences of cheating on me, especially with the temptation of living with Leslie. However, my life was beginning to unravel. The initial 2 weeks proved challenging. Joyce made a point to visit Marty, yet our interactions were limited to mere exchanges. Despite continuing to have her followed, there were no significant developments. She maintained her outings with Leslie and her friends, extending them from just Wednesdays to at least 4 nights a week. Looks like someone is trying to make up for lost time, I muttered to myself while reviewing the report. Nonetheless, I managed to find a nanny for Marty, a recent college graduate named Alice, who had struggled to secure full-time employment. Alice, 23 years old, blonde, and standing at about 5'9", eagerly accepted the nanny position after seeing my ad. Growing up in a large family, she was well-versed in caring for and handling young boys, having 2 younger brothers of her own. We quickly reached an agreement on pay and hours, and she moved in the following day. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, Alice worked as a waitress at a mid-priced family restaurant, joining us for dinner on the other evenings. Over time, Marty grew comfortable with Alice, particularly enjoying her bedtime reading sessions. Alice, I can't thank you enough for going above and beyond for Marty. With his mother temporarily out of the picture, stability is crucial for him, I expressed, offering the best smile I could muster. I know about your situation with your wife. Your mother filled me in on all the details in case Joyce came by and tried to take him, Alice disclosed. I can't believe she would just walk out on you like that. I've only known you for a short time, but you're one of the most caring men I've ever met, and it's clear you love Marty dearly. I suppose Joyce lost sight of what truly matters and let others convince her that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, I remarked. Well, it'll all be settled one way or another in 40 days, and frankly, it can't come soon enough for me. Little did I know, my life was about to take a dramatic turn, and chaos would ensue in less than a week. You see, I'm a silent partner at the accounting firm where I work. Over the past 2 years, I've brought in a significant amount of new business, leading the owners to make me a 15% partner. I requested that this information be kept confidential because I preferred not to be recognized as one of the owners. This allowed me to gain insights into the company's operations and gauge employee sentiments more authentically. My latest achievement involves securing a meeting with an overseas garment manufacturer with plants in 5 Asian countries. I had initially met the owners at a party about a year ago and pitched them a few ideas, which impressed them enough to schedule a follow-up meeting to discuss our firm's potential involvement. Jake, I admire the personalized approach your firm brings to its work. Each plant currently operates independently, and I need someone to establish a unified system across all facilities so we can manage them centrally from our overseas office, one of the prospective owners expressed during our discussion. While they were initially disappointed that I wouldn't be directly overseeing the overseas operation, I reassured them that I would personally oversee every aspect to ensure flawless execution. With the signed contract and a handshake, celebrations commenced. After 9 months of hard work on this account, I had hoped to return home to Joyce with the good news. I envisioned treating her to a lavish dinner, followed by an intimate evening together. However, upon arriving home, I found the house empty and my heart shattered. Alice arrived with Marty 20 minutes later, carrying Chinese takeout. I was bursting with excitement and needed to share my great news, so I confided in Alice. Forget about dinner plans. We're all going out tonight to celebrate, I informed her. Put on your finest attire because we're going to paint the town red. My bosses had arranged reservations at the town's finest restaurant for 8:00 p.m. and had organized a limo to pick us up at 7:30 p.m., so time was of the essence. After shaving, showering, and dressing up, I decided to assist Alice in getting Marty ready, allowing her more time to prepare. By 7:15 p.m., both Marty and I were dressed and eager to go. That's when I spotted Alice descending the stairs. I hope you don't mind. I didn't have anything fancy to wear, so I found one of your wife's dresses that sort of fits, she explained, slightly self-conscious. The dress hugged her figure like a glove, but was a tad short due to her taller stature. Do you think it looks okay? You look stunning, Alice, I responded, my eyes widening in admiration as the doorbell chimed. With that, the three of us embarked on our journey, boarding the waiting limousine just as Joyce happened to be driving down our street. What in the world? Joyce muttered in disbelief as she observed them piling into the stretch limo. I wonder what's happening, she pondered, deciding to follow them. Upon witnessing them enter the restaurant, she seethed with anger. That jerk. He claims we can't afford to dine at such an establishment, yet he's treating them to a lavish night out. And who on earth is wearing my dress? The evening turned out to be wonderful. I was the center of attention, and we indulged in sumptuous food and drinks. Eventually, Alice informed me that it was time to depart as Marty was growing tired, well past his bedtime. You're absolutely right. We should head home before Marty becomes impossible to wake up for school tomorrow. I expressed my gratitude to everyone for the dinner, but as they shook my hand, their gazes seemed to linger on Alice, not just the men. Alice looked stunning tonight, and I couldn't help but notice the envious glances from the other women. They must have heard the tale of Joyce's departure to find herself, and now they were convinced that I wasted no time in finding a replacement. The ride home was silent as Marty drifted off to sleep as soon as we entered the limo. I carried him upstairs, tucked him in, and planted a kiss on his forehead before bidding him good night. Descending back downstairs, still clad in my tuxedo, I found Alice savoring a glass of wine at the kitchen table. I want to thank you for tonight. You didn't have to take me along, she said with a warm smile. How could I have left you here alone tonight? Besides, I genuinely enjoy your company, Alice, I replied, pouring myself a glass of wine. I hope it wasn't too dull for you, being surrounded by a bunch of accountants. On the contrary, I found it quite fascinating. I never realized how interesting your job is, and everyone seems to hold you in high regard, myself included, she said with a hint of a smile. You've made me feel like part of your family, even though I'm just the nanny. As much as I desired to have Alice in my bedroom, I reminded myself that I was still married and committed to remaining faithful to Joyce. Tonight was indeed magical, and I have certain thoughts swirling in my mind about what I'd like to do, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen tonight, I admitted. Perhaps if circumstances were different, but they're not, so I'll settle for a cold shower and an early night, I told Alice, planting a kiss on her cheek as she hugged me. At 2 a.m, I felt Alice slip into my bed beside me. Her warmth signaled her nakedness, and before I could speak, she gently placed a finger on my lips. I know we can't do anything tonight. I just want to be close to you, that's all, she whispered as she spooned me. The next morning, I awoke to find myself alone in bed. Downstairs, Alice was dressed and cooking breakfast for the three of us, and not a word was exchanged between us. Meanwhile, Joyce was furious. Here I am, trying to figure out my life with Jake, and he's already replaced me with some floozy, she raged, slamming her hand on the desk. Her mistake was confiding in Leslie, who encouraged her to celebrate her newfound freedom. Despite her reluctance to party, she joined Leslie at Tony's, where they encountered a group of handsome men vying for their attention. While most of their group left after a few drinks, Joyce and Leslie remained. One of the men caught Leslie's interest, while Joyce found herself drawn to another. He was attractive, with a physique akin to a Greek god, and the chemistry between them was palpable. As they danced, his hands explored her body, and despite her inner conflict, Joyce didn't resist his advances. She allowed him to kiss her and lead her to a secluded corner of the dance floor, where things escalated further. However, she failed to stop him when his hands wandered up her dress, a decision she would soon regret, especially as she discovered that Jake had hired a private investigator to document the entire encounter. The four of them ended up at Leslie's place, where Joyce found herself naked and lying on the bed with him. However, in a moment of clarity, she realized she couldn't go through with it. "I can't do this. I'm still married, and despite everything, I still love my husband," she asserted, disregarding his objections. He left her alone, and Joyce took a cold shower. "I need to get my head and ass together," she resolved the next morning, but events beyond her control were already beginning to reshape her life, and not for the better. On my computer screen, I saw the pictures of Joyce, culminating in the image of the four of them entering Leslie's apartment. I promptly emailed them to my attorney, instructing him to prepare the paperwork, but to hold off until Monday. "I suppose she's made her decision," I said with a heavy heart, as I had hoped to reconcile with Joyce, but it seemed unlikely now. The next day, I informed my bosses that I would personally handle the Asian project. "I need to take some time away to clear my head and sort out my life," I explained. "Can you be ready to leave by the 12th for the project startup?" they asked. "Give me a couple of days to finalize my affairs and arrange for an apartment so I have a place to send my belongings," I requested. "I have a few more conversations to have today, but if all goes as planned, I'll be prepared." That afternoon, I delegated my remaining tasks to my staff, ensuring they were prepared to handle everything in my absence. I drafted paperwork to grant my mother power of attorney and instructed Michael to serve papers on Joyce the following Monday. "Same amount of notice that she gave me," I muttered sadly. Returning home that evening, I felt a wave of melancholy wash over me as I walked into a house that would no longer be mine upon my return from overseas. Joyce and I had chosen it together, and it held countless cherished memories, all of which would soon be just that, memories. Dinner was unusually quiet, and Alice sensed my somber mood. "Is everything okay, Jake?" she asked tentatively. "It's not you, Alice. I just have a lot on my mind." "We'll talk after Marty goes to bed," I assured her. By 10 o'clock, with the house silent, Alice broached the subject. "What's bothering you, Jake?" "If it's about the other night, I'm really sorry, and I promise it won't happen again," she offered earnestly. "It's not about that," I began. "Remember the company party a couple of weeks ago? Well, I've decided to handle the overseas work myself, and Marty and I will be leaving early Monday morning," I explained. "And I have an important question for you," I added, noticing tears welling up in Alice's eyes. "Would you like to come with us?" Her expression transformed from sorrow to delight. "Absolutely," she exclaimed, rushing into my embrace. "Do you have an updated passport, Alice?" I inquired. "I had it renewed last year when I went on a cruise with my college friends," she confirmed with a smile. "Then it's settled. You'll need to have everything packed by Saturday because they're shipping out all our belongings ahead of time. Leave just enough clothes for the rest of the weekend and Monday's travel attire. You can inform your family and friends, but I don't want Joyce to know until we're in the air. It might not be entirely legal to just take Marty with us and leave, but I'm doing it anyway. I'll handle any questions when we return," I instructed Alice. That evening, I sat down with my mother and laid out the entire plan, including giving her my power of attorney. "Things will likely hit the fan Monday afternoon with Joyce, but I still want you to put the house up for sale next week. Michael will send you a copy of the papers I'm serving to Joyce, and if she has any questions, just direct her to Michael," I explained. "Are you sure this is what you want, Jake? Have you considered trying to work things out with her?" my mom inquired. "She's made her decision, and now she can live with the consequences," I affirmed. "And Alice, you're taking her with you?" My mom pressed for the final piece of information. "I'm not entirely certain where we're headed, but she brings me joy and keeps me grounded. Beyond that, I may have developed genuine feelings for her, and that's all I'm going to disclose. We'll be over Sunday night so you can say goodbye to Marty," I informed her firmly. On Monday, Joyce desperately tried to reach Jake, only to be informed by his workplace that he was on a special project outside the office. Frustrated, she attempted his cell phone to no avail. Joyce Spencer, a man approached her. She nodded, and he handed her an envelope. "You have been served," he said solemnly. With a mixture of curiosity and dread, Joyce tore into the envelope. Inside was a brief note from Jake, concluding with, "I guess I've made my decision. Hope you have a great life." But it was the photos enclosed that made her blood run cold. "Oh no," she muttered, her heart sinking as she flipped through the damning images. How did he get these? She wondered. He must have had me followed, she concluded, a mixture of anger and panic swirling within her. As she processed the shocking contents, she received another blow. News from Jake's mother that he and Marty had left on a 4 to 5 month overseas project. Gone? What do you mean gone? Joyce's voice trembled with disbelief. Jake is on a long-term project abroad, and he took Marty with him, Jake's mother explained calmly. I won't stand for this. He can't just take Marty away from me, especially out of the country, Joyce protested vehemently. I'll fight him in court. He'll pay for this, she vowed, her voice rising with fury. Joyce, remember that Jake has full custody of Marty now. Jake's mother gently reminded her. You relinquished that right when you left to find yourself. To say you messed up big time would be an understatement. You had a wonderful marriage, but it seems you wanted more, and now you're left with nothing. Tears streaming down her face, Joyce pleaded, I need to talk to him, to explain that it's not what it looks like. I still love him, and I never slept with anyone else. He has to believe me. Joyce, I saw the pictures, and if my husband were alive and doing what you've done, I'd divorce him too, Jake's mother replied firmly. If I were you, I'd write him a letter, explaining everything you need to. I'll make sure he gets it. In the meantime, you should get a lawyer. Taking her advice, Joyce laid out her case. She highlighted the role alcohol played and emphasized that she stopped it before anything went too far. She expressed her continued love for Jake and her willingness to wait for him to come back to her. Jake's response was blunt and direct. Joyce, you haven't been a wife to me since you lost all that weight last year, he wrote. It felt like you were suddenly too good for me, basking in the attention of other men. When you finally came home on Wednesday nights, you were only interested in having a good time in bed, not in making love to your husband. It seems I no longer excite you. So, now you and Leslie can do whatever you want and be with whomever you want. I warned you that Leslie would eventually tear us apart, but you didn't listen, Jake's letter stated bluntly. Marty, Alice, and I are starting anew, based on love and trust. You can visit Marty anytime you want. Just get a camera modem for your computer, and I'll set it up. Sign the papers because Mom is putting the house up for sale this week. There's no chance we'll ever reconcile, so don't hold on to false hope that I'll change my mind. I hope you found what you were looking for, Joyce, and are happy. I never wanted it to end like this. Reading Jake's words, Joyce realized he was right. She had been foolish to heed the advice of her so-called good friends who were all divorced themselves. Perhaps they didn't have the best judgment after all. She resolved to fight it until she received Jake's letter, after which she finally signed the papers. Ironically, 6 months later, Joyce found herself back at her starting weight of 175 pounds, but without Jake. Despite the challenges, Jake found contentment in his new life abroad. Overcoming the language barrier at work proved to be challenging, but manageable. Marty was adapting well, gradually picking up words and enjoying his interactions with other children. Alice, meanwhile, took charge of caring for Marty and organizing their free time, creating lists of places to visit and activities to enjoy. I still recall that night vividly, months ago. It was shortly after we arrived in the country, and we were all feeling a bit stressed. Marty resisted bedtime, my work program hit some bumps, and Alice seemed overwhelmed. She came into the den and planted a kiss on the back of my neck, instantly bringing a smile to my face. Taking my hand, she led me into her bedroom, where a single candle flickered on each side of our bed. We undressed each other and slipped under the covers. Let's just say, that night, it felt like heaven and earth merged into one. 5 months later, my mom greeted us at the airport with a beaming smile, particularly delighted to see Marty. During the ride home, she couldn't help but notice Alice's serene expression. How far along are you? she asked Alice, who seemed a bit surprised by the question. 3 months. How did you know? I'm barely showing, Alice responded. You both looked too happy, like the cat that got the cream, my mom remarked. 2 weeks later, we tied the knot, and 6 months after that, Mia came into the world. When Alice mentioned wanting to join a gym to shed her baby weight, my reaction was priceless. 2 days later, I surprised her with the news that I'd arranged for a personal trainer, and she'd have all the necessary equipment. No need to go through all that hassle again, I thought to myself, relieved. The second story. Joyce and I had shared 12 years of marriage, a journey that began when we were just 10-year-old sweethearts. While I never felt drawn to college, I landed an entry-level position at Patterson Engineering as a draftsman straight out of high school. A year later, Joyce and I tied the knot, and soon after, our family expanded with the arrival of twin girls, Batty and Bridget. Those initial years were challenging, but with careful budgeting, we made ends meet. My career as a draftsman progressed, though finances remained tight. Despite the constraints, we saved diligently, eventually purchasing a modest home and acquiring 2 dependable cars. While not brand new, they were far from dilapidated. Joyce's dream was always to be a stay-at-home mom, and with our prudent savings, that dream became a reality. As for our health, we were both fortunate to be in good shape. Joyce had gained a bit of weight since our wedding, but it was hardly noticeable. Standing just over 5 feet tall, with her dark brown hair and bangs, she resembled a petite Mary Osmond. As for myself, my physique hadn't changed much since my days as a high school football player. Brian Miller, a recent transplant from Lancaster, joined Patterson Engineering as a surveyor about a year ago. Brian and I had crossed paths on the football field in our youth, forging an instant camaraderie upon his arrival. He, too, married his high school sweetheart, Stella, a spirited redhead. Instantly, Stella and Joyce hit it off, forming a fast friendship. Though Brian and Stella had yet to start a family of their own, they proved to be ideal babysitters for our girls. When Brian and I weren't at work, we found solace in each other's company, a welcome respite from the routine of home life. Meanwhile, Joyce and Stella had forged their own bond, indulging in shopping excursions, parties, and club meetings. While they reveled in their activities, Brian and I took charge of childcare duties, often passing the time in front of the TV. Stella had secured a job as a secretary at Russell Engineering, expanding her social circle beyond our small town. Yet my observations began to stir unease about 6 months ago. What was once a monthly PTA meeting had now become a weekly occurrence, and Stella, despite lacking children of her own, faithfully accompanied Joyce. The frequency of Tupperware and Magic Chef parties seemed to surge, though purchases were conspicuously absent. They even joined a book club, though the books themselves remained untouched. Weekend shopping trips stretched on for hours, yielding minimal purchases. Meanwhile, Joyce's lingerie collection expanded, though I found little opportunity to appreciate it. About an hour after tucking the girls into bed, Joyce returned from a basket party. She promptly showered upon her arrival, which struck me as peculiar. While she was freshening up, I decided to sneak a peek in the hamper, where I discovered a pair of black lace underwear. Who wears black lace underwear to a basket party? Until tonight, I had never felt the need to delve into my wife's purse or wallet. Yet tonight was different, and my focus zeroed in on her cell phone. It seemed she was rather confident that I wouldn't snoop, as she hadn't bothered to delete any recent calls. Most were to Stella, but a significant number were to individuals identified only by initials, KC, KH, and KO. Though their identities eluded me, I quickly surmised that C stood for cell, H for home, and EW likely for work. A glance at her address book revealed a similar organization for Stella's contacts: Stella C, Stella H, and Stella W. I couldn't help but marvel at how meticulously Joyce had organized her phone. The pieces began to fall into place as I noticed that Stella's work number had an extension, and the number for KW matched Stella's, but with a different extension. It became apparent that Joyce had been in frequent contact with someone from Stella's workplace, and it wasn't difficult to deduce that Stella had facilitated the connection. With Russell Engineering closed for the night, I seized Joyce's phone and dialed the catalog number. "Hello. You have reached the desk of Kevin Scott. I am not at my desk right now, but if you leave your name and number, I will get back to you as soon as I can," came the automated response. I ended the call after the beep, feeling a wave of unease. It all seemed too easy. "Jason, are you coming to bed?" Joyce's voice interrupted from the doorway. "I'm just finishing up this book. I'll be up shortly," I replied, feigning nonchalance. In truth, I had every intention of spending the night on the couch. Restlessness plagued me as I tossed and turned. Thoughts circled back relentlessly, questioning what I could have done differently. But I refused to succumb to guilt for something that wasn't my doing. The clock seemed frozen, each passing minute a reminder of my turmoil. Yet, amidst the turmoil, one thing remained clear. I wouldn't allow myself to shoulder unwarranted blame for whatever had transpired or was yet to come. I woke up to the familiar sounds of my daughters preparing their breakfast, Joyce's voice gently encouraging them to take responsibility for themselves. It was a routine that seemed to be working well. As I stretched and rubbed my eyes, Joyce entered the room, reminding me of the time. "You better hurry, Jason, or you'll be late for work," she said. "No problem. I won't be going in today," I replied, surprising even myself with the decisiveness of my statement. "Why? You never miss work," Joyce responded, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Too many personal issues," I muttered, heading towards the bathroom in need of a shower. Joyce's puzzled expression lingered as I left the room. When I returned, the girls had already left for school. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from Joyce. Reluctantly, she met my gaze, sensing that something was amiss. "Tell me about your affair," I blurted out, bypassing any preamble. I knew she wouldn't easily divulge the truth, but I couldn't bring myself to dance around the issue. Joyce's eyes widened in disbelief. "Get serious, Jason. Is this why you've been acting so strangely? Do you honestly believe I'm having an affair?" "Yes, so tell me," I insisted firmly, refusing to back down. "We've been married for 12 years, Jason. Why would you even think such a thing?" She countered, a mixture of hurt and frustration evident in her tone. "Joyce, I have things to attend to today, and I'm not going to waste time playing games. Tell me about your affair," I pressed, my patience wearing thin. Exasperated, Joyce leaned towards me. "Jason, it's all in your head. There is no affair." "Well, I would thank you for your honesty, but I can't, can I?" I retorted, feeling a surge of bitterness. She reclined in her chair, sipping her coffee with an air of control. "Can we move past this now? What else do you want to know?" "Why do you attend PTA meetings every week when the secretary says they're only monthly, and you haven't been to any in 6 months?" I asked pointedly, my resolve unyielding. I'm not sure what you're talking about," Joyce faltered, her confidence wavering. "Why do you and Stella attend non-existent PTA meetings every Tuesday? What's the point of lying about it?" I confronted Joyce, my frustration bubbling beneath the surface. After a moment of hesitation, Joyce offered an explanation. "I'm truly sorry, Jason. Tuesday is ladies' night at Rosie's Cantina, and Stella and I go for the 2-for-1 margaritas. We didn't want you and Brian to think we were up to something, so we kept it quiet. It was a mistake, and I apologize. We'll be honest with you from now on." "Nice try, Joyce. I'll be checking that out. You might have Stella to back you up, but what about the folks at Rosie's?" I challenged, refusing to accept her half-hearted excuse. "Jason, you're blowing this out of proportion," she insisted. "Why do you shower before and after those Tupperware parties?" I pressed on, my frustration mounting. "It's because a lot of the women smoke at those gatherings. I want to get rid of the smell when I get home. It's no big deal," she countered dismissively. "Why do you wear fancy underwear to these parties? You never dress up like that for me unless it's a special occasion. But every time you're with those housewives, you're in your finest. Why?" I demanded, my patience wearing thin. "I don't have a good answer for that. Sometimes I just want to feel dressed up when I go out," she admitted sheepishly. Her lies and denials pushed me over the edge. With a surge of anger, I hurled my half-filled coffee cup across the room, the impact shattering the front of the microwave. The sound of breaking glass jolted Joyce, her expression shifting to one of shock as she realized the depth of my frustration. Leaning forward, I locked eyes with her and raised my voice. "Who is Kevin Scott?" She recoiled, retreating to the sink, her fear palpable. "Just a friend," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Did you sleep with him?" I demanded, my anger boiling over. Yes, I did," she confessed, her words laced with desperation. "Stop it, Jason. Please stop it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just stop it, please." She broke down into sobs, and I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, trying to steady my nerves. As I prepared to sit down, Joyce's phone rang. Her eyes darted between me and the phone, and I decided to answer the call on speaker. "Good morning, sugar. I just arrived at work and noticed you tried calling my office number last night. Did you forget something at home?" I greeted Joyce using the affectionate nickname. There was a noticeable shift in Joyce's demeanor, a hint of mortification evident in her silence. "Joyce, are you there? Is everything all right?" I prompted, urging her to respond. Her gaze met mine, a look of sheer panic crossing her face. I signaled for her to speak up, my heart pounding in my chest. Kevin, she stuttered, her voice trembling. "Kevin, my husband, is here. He knows about us. He has the phone on speaker." The line remained silent, and I felt compelled to release him from the awkward situation. "Kevin, old pal, I've got some errands to run this morning, but I'll swing by this afternoon. Maybe you should keep 911 on speed dial." With that, I ended the call and slipped the phone back into my pocket. Joyce stood frozen by the sink, her bathrobe draped around her trembling form. "I have to leave now, but I have one last question. Who's the guy Stella's seeing?" I demanded, my voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. "Jason, please, don't make me," Joyce began, but before she could finish, the second cup soared across the room, shattering against the tile wall behind her. She recoiled in shock, her words tumbling out in a frantic rush. Charles Bailey. "I'll be back this afternoon. Have your things packed by then. My mother will look after the girls until we sort things out. Anything you can't fit in your car, I'll take care of. Let my mother know where you'll be, and don't bother calling me," I instructed, my tone cold and final. With that, I left without another word, leaving Joyce standing motionless in the aftermath of our shattered life together. Feeling adrift, I decided to head to the office and seek solace in Brian's company. He had always been a friend, and I believed he deserved to know the truth. As I pieced together the tangled web of betrayal in my mind, it seemed clear. Stella had met Charles at work, befriended him, and Kevin was likely a companion of Charles in need of a date. It might have been oversimplified, but it was a start. Brian wasn't in the office. He was out at a site setting stakes or something of the sort. I dialed his cell, preparing to drop the bombshell. "Brian, hate to bother you, but I've got some bad news." "Is someone hurt?" Brian's concern was evident in his voice. "Not yet, but they're headed for trouble," I replied grimly. "What the hell are you talking about, Jason?" Brian's confusion was palpable. "Joyce and Stella have been sneaking around with a couple of guys. All those supposed meetings and Tupperware parties. They've been rendezvousing with their new boyfriends." "Are you sure? That sounds like bullshit to me," Brian responded skeptically. "Ask Stella about a guy named Charles Bailey. He works at Russell with her. I reckon she introduced Joyce to another fella from there too." "Shit, really? Damn it, Jason. I know Charles Bailey. We were in the same graduating class." "How about a guy named Kevin Scott?" I pressed, seeking confirmation. "Yeah, him too. Tall, skinny fella," Brian confirmed, his tone growing more serious. "Listen, Joyce will likely tip off Stella as soon as she can. I got a load of crap from Joyce this morning before I got the truth out of her. I'm guessing you'll get the same runaround from Stella," I warned. Brian hung up, and I made a beeline for personnel to request some time off. I wasn't in the mood to work. It took just 10 minutes to delegate my ongoing tasks to another draftsman. As I settled into my newfound freedom, Joyce's cell rang. Caller ID revealed it was Stella. "Joyce, what's going on?" "I just got a call from Brian. He's on his way to the office. Somebody's been talking. Stella's voice sounded urgent. I remained silent, enjoying the moment. Joyce, are you there? This isn't the time for games, Stella persisted. Hi, Stella. It's Jason. Borrowed Joyce's phone. Mine's dead. What's Brian been told? I couldn't resist a bit of mischief. I'm sorry, Jason. Thought I was reaching Joyce. I'll try her at home, Stella apologized. Don't bother her right now. She's busy packing her things. Moving back in with her parents for a while, I informed her matter-of-factly. There was a stunned silence on the other end, and I couldn't help but smile at the thought of Stella's reaction. I think it's more urgent for you to let Charles know Brian's on his way over. He could use a head start, I suggested. Oh God, no, this can't be happening. No. Stella's panicked voice filled the line before she abruptly hung up on me. The nerve of that woman. Canceling our sole credit card was a straightforward task. Thankfully, adjusting the PIN number for our ATM/debit card was a quick 5-minute job. As for our checking account, I was at a loss for what to do, so I chose to set it aside for the time being. After all, we still relied on it for essential payments like utilities and bills. I just hoped Joyce hadn't taken any checks with her. My phone rang again. This time it was Brian. He recounted how he pursued Charles Bailey out of the Russell building and detained him in the parking lot. Now Charles was in jail and needed his brother in Lancaster to post bail. I made the call, feeling a sense of helplessness, then decided to grab lunch at Taco Bell. Afterward, I paid a visit to my mom and dad, filling them in on the situation. Mom readily agreed to look after the girls for a while, with plans for her to stay with us during the week and the twins to stay with them on weekends. With that arranged, it was time to confront Kevin Scott. The guys in the drafting department at Russell eagerly shared details of Brian's morning encounter. From their vantage point overlooking the parking lot, they witnessed the entire altercation. Brian intercepted Charles before he reached his BMW, throwing him onto the hood of a nearby car and assaulting him. Despite the security guard's intervention, Brian's rage was unrelenting until they subdued him with a taser. Charles was whisked away by EMTs, while Brian was taken into police custody. I was directed to Kevin Scott's cubicle, only to find it empty. It appeared Kevin had abruptly resigned that morning. We stopped by Stella's desk, but she wasn't there. However, it seemed evident that she was still employed. Within 10 minutes, I managed to obtain Kevin's home address, prompting me to make my way to the parking lot. Arriving at his small ranch house, I noticed a white Lexus parked in the driveway, its trunk and back doors wide open. Just as I approached, Kevin emerged from the house carrying a bundle of clothing. Startled by my presence, he hastily retreated back inside. I chuckled at his reaction, recognizing that I wasn't the intimidating type like Brian. The house appeared to be rented and fully furnished, explaining the absence of a truck. In another 10 minutes, Kevin would likely have been packed up and ready to leave town. Though I was eager to have a conversation with him, I wasn't keen on chasing him down. Instead, I explored the premises, stumbling upon a few pleasant surprises. I spotted his cell phone on a desk in the living room, alongside a folder containing his passport and personal papers. On the dining room table sat a sleek laptop computer. Satisfied with my discoveries, I gathered them up and made my exit. Resisting the urge to vandalize his car, I admired its beauty. While I recognized that taking items from the house could be considered theft, I reasoned that Kevin had left the door open, making them fair game for anyone. Unable to completely restrain myself, I let the air out of one of his tires as a subtle message. He would have to unload the trunk to access the spare, all while keeping an eye out for me. I'd deal with him later. He got the message. I made a quick stop by the jail to see Brian, but he was deep in legal discussions with his brother, so I just waved and smiled, reassured that he had things under control. Mom had already arrived at the house and had supper started. After exchanging some conversation, I took the items I'd retrieved from Kevin's place into the den where I kept my computer and other belongings. However, before I could delve into them, Batty and Bridget returned home from school. Sensing it was best to address the situation before they asked, I didn't get the chance. "Hi, Dad. What's Nana doing here?" Where's Mom? Batty beat me to the punch. Your mom and I have decided to take a little break from each other. She'll be staying at her parents' place for a while, I informed them. Bridget started grinning while Batty rolled her eyes and groaned. I win. Hey, I win. I told you so, Bridget boasted triumphantly while her sister scowled. What's going on? What's so funny? I inquired, confused. Bridget eagerly volunteered to explain. Batty and I had a bet. I said that Mom was cheating on you, and she said it would never happen. Looks like I won. I never mentioned anything about your mother cheating, I protested. We're not stupid, Dad, and don't treat us like children. We know what's going on. I just didn't want to admit it. Bridget's right. Mom's cheating on you, Batty declared matter-of-factly. How did you find out? I just discovered this, I admitted, taken aback. You're a little slow, Dad, and a little too trusting, Bridget remarked, slipping her arm around my shoulder in an attempt to comfort me, an unusual role reversal. One Saturday when Mom and Stella said they were going shopping at King of Prussia, Mom wouldn't let Bridget and me come along. She said it was a grown-up shopping day and promised to make it up to us later. But when we got to school on Monday, a couple of kids claimed they saw her with a guy at Noble's Grove. We call them liars, but one of the girls had a cell phone picture. It seemed pretty clear-cut. I figured there must be an explanation, but Bridget insisted she was cheating, Batty recounted solemnly. Why didn't you say something to me? I questioned, but they simply shrugged. A couple of weeks later, Tiffany Morris's parents spotted Stella, Mom, and two guys at TGI Fridays in Allentown. They informed Tiffany about it when they got home. I sat there dumbfounded. Thank goodness Mom called us for supper, providing a welcome distraction. We avoided discussing the issue during dinner, and I excused myself before dessert arrived. Luckily, the twins decided to drop the subject for the rest of the night, much to my relief. Just as I started to sift through Kevin's laptop, his cell phone rang with a text message. Dear Kevin, sorry for the problems. Love, Joyce. The message came from Stella's cell phone, which meant that Stella and Joyce were together. I couldn't resist the temptation and replied. Thanks a lot. Kaysen. Now she knew I had Kevin's cell phone. Over the next couple of hours, I delved into the files and folders on Kevin's computer. While there were no emails exchanged between Joyce and Kevin, I stumbled upon some correspondence between Kevin and his old friends in Lancaster that piqued my interest. What I read left me astonished and unsettled. Despite spending almost our entire lives together, it seemed I never truly knew Joyce. She appeared to have formed a stronger bond with Kevin in less than a year than she had with me in almost 20. As I replaced the printer cartridge, I couldn't help but notice tears welling up in my eyes, a rarity for me. Her betrayal stung, and my tears only seemed to exacerbate the pain. I printed out several emails and a dozen pictures, though I would have printed more photos if I hadn't run out of expensive paper. Surprisingly, there were no explicit or suggestive images among them. They were all suitable for general viewing. Just as I was engrossed in this task, Batty interrupted, asking if she could call her mother. Despite my mixed emotions, I couldn't bring myself to refuse her request. Meanwhile, my mother, who was with the twins during their conversation with Joyce, inadvertently overheard everything. The girls didn't hold back and placed the blame squarely on Joyce's shoulders. The conversation didn't last long, lasting less than 5 minutes. The emails proved to be particularly revealing. Kevin had secured a job as an engineer for an alternative power project in Spain, with a starting date just 6 weeks away. Strangely, he hadn't given notice at Russell, and I suspected only Stella was aware of his impending departure. He seemed well prepared for the trip, except for one detail, his passport, which I happened to have. While he could likely obtain a replacement, time was of the essence if he intended to make his start date. I doubted he would report me to the police for taking it, especially since he hadn't made any flight reservations yet. One of the emails to a close friend shed light on Joyce's intentions. She was planning to file for divorce after joining Kevin in Spain. Recognizing that I wouldn't consent to the girls leaving the country, she intended to have me deemed an unfit father. The letter didn't provide many specifics on her plan, but it hinted at measures severe enough to strip me of visitation and custody rights. It was a cruel revelation, made even more bitter by the fact that Kevin had written the letter, rendering it hearsay. I wished for something directly from Joyce outlining her intentions, but I had to make do with what I had. I printed several copies of the letter for safekeeping. Mom had dozed off watching Leno, so I escorted her upstairs to our bedroom. The girls were already in bed, and I drifted off on the couch surrounded by empty beer bottles. The aroma of fresh coffee and bacon roused me from sleep. Mom always put together a hearty breakfast. By the time I made it to the table, the girls were finishing their cereal. Amidst some playful banter, I broached the serious topic before they headed off to catch the bus. "Girls, I'm afraid your mother may try to separate us. She's planning to label me unfit so she can have you all to herself. I'm okay with shared custody if that's what you want, but I won't give up my right to see you. I want you to be aware of what's going on. Be cautious and don't believe any lies. Dad, we're smarter than you think. Don't worry. We love Mom, but we won't let her harm you or us." Bridget grinned, and Batty gave me a reassuring thumbs up as they left. Mom refilled my cup and sat down with her own. "Relax, Jason. Everyone's on your side." After showering and shaving, I dressed slightly more formally than usual. It felt peculiar leaving the house with 3 cell phones, but I made a mental note to get a charger for Kevin's phone just in case. Better to be prepared, even if it seemed unnecessary. I checked in at the Family Services office and waited for my name to be called. When I finally got called, I was surprised to see someone familiar, Jenny Martinez. It had been over a decade since I last saw her. "Jason Turner, it's been ages. What have you been up to?" Jenny greeted me warmly. Jenny was memorable from her high school days as one of the goth girls. They formed their own clique and stuck together, often being ostracized by others, particularly the jocks like myself. I remembered her with her pink streaked hair, black lipstick, and dark eye makeup. Despite her appearance then, she looked quite different now, more conventional. The funny thing about the goths was the mystery surrounding them. People speculated about their involvement in drugs, perversion, or even witchcraft. Of course, in hindsight, it was likely none of those things. Jenny, I assumed, was still unmarried, judging by the nameplate on her desk reading J. Martinez. 12 years ago, that made sense, but today she seemed. "Jason, what brings you to me?" Her question interrupted my train of thought. I found myself stumbling over my words. "You look great, Jenny." She chuckled at my awkwardness, compared to how I used to look. Now, embarrassment tinged my cheeks, I suppose, but I didn't mean to imply anything. "Relax, Jason. It took me halfway through college to realize I could face the world as myself, without any pretense. I've been what you'd call normal for almost 10 years. I'm more comfortable with normal now, but darn it, that sounds patronizing. I seem to have a knack for putting my foot in my mouth. Please excuse me." "Forget it. Now, why are you here?" Before we dive in, I need to ask, do you have any files or reports on me? Anything at all? Her fingers danced across the keys like a pianist. "Nothing here, Jason. You married Joyce Watson, correct?" "Yes." "Nothing under her name either. It seems like you two are just raising your kids without any issues. You do have kids, right?" "Yeah, we have 12-year-old twin girls, Batty and Bridget." "All right, now can we discuss the issue that brought you here?" "Jenny, this might sound far-fetched, and I know it's hard to believe, but my wife is planning on leaving me and taking the girls with her." "It's not uncommon, Jason. We see this scenario quite often. Doesn't she need a reason to take such a step?" "Typically, when a mother approaches us, she comes armed with documentation or evidence to support her claims. You just checked, and there's nothing in our records now. Correct?" "That's correct, Jason, but how can I be certain you're not setting me up?" "Perhaps she's gathering medical or police reports before bringing them to our attention. Just because our system doesn't show anything doesn't rule out the possibility." "So, what you're suggesting is that I can't win." "No, that's not what I'm saying. Why do you think she's contemplating such actions?" I hadn't intended to reveal the email Kevin had sent, but now I felt compelled. I had to question why I'd made copies if I had no intention of sharing them. I slid one across the desk to Jenny. Where did you obtain this? I retrieved it from a computer I accessed illegally. I understand it may not hold up in court, but it serves as some form of evidence regarding the situation. The term conspiracy comes to mind, though I'm unsure of its legal implications. I reached out to you or someone in this office because I'm unsure how to protect myself and my daughters in this situation, and I can't afford legal representation. Jenny Martinez eased back into her chair, a moment of calm amidst the swirling uncertainties. I observed her closely, not daring to break the silence. With a gentle sway, she leaned in my direction. Can you return tomorrow morning? Yes. Good. I'll expect you then. Mind if I hold on to this email copy? I nodded affirmatively, turning to exit the room. It's been nice catching up, Jason. I offered a smile in return, noting the transformation in Jenny's demeanor. The goth girl faded from memory as I glimpsed this new version of her. With no legal connections to rely on, I resorted to the yellow pages to find representation. Aware of Jenny's intentions for divorce, I opted for preemptive action. Uncertain about our financial future, I secured a lawyer and settled the fees up front in cash, emphasizing speed and simplicity. The house, its value dwindling below the mortgage, was hers if she desired. My priority? Joint custody of the twins or full custody if feasible, with child support but no alimony. Midway through my lunch break, Brian called in need of shelter, and I readily extended an offer. We rendezvoused at Taco Bell for a humble meal, where Brian's grin greeted me upon arrival. I can see the happiness doesn't quite match the situation. What's going on? A friend of mine from Community General Hospital filled me in on Charles. Stella went to see him there, not knowing she was walking into a trap. Charles's wife arrived with their kids, causing a scene that got Stella escorted out by security. I swung by Russell to talk to her, but she'd already quit. She's probably home now, but I'm not certain. Why wasn't his wife up here with him? No idea. And why wasn't he going home to his family on weekends? Honestly, I couldn't care less. Brian took a week off to sort things out. With my mom also staying at the house, we'd need to figure out sleeping arrangements. Brian planned to grab some essentials from his place in case Stella wasn't around. He decided against confronting her. I was on my way to see my insurance agent when the phone rang again. Jason, it's Clifford Watson. Can you come over? Joyce is falling apart and her mother's not helping. We'll be there. Just us three and Joyce's sister, Caroline. Not sure what we'll accomplish, but I'll be there in 20. It was a solemn gathering. I brought my documents but declined coffee. Who wants to start? Jason, Joyce thinks you're overreacting. She says you were furious and pressured her into saying things she didn't mean to calm you down. She insists she did nothing wrong and you have no right to kick her out. It was evident that my wife had sugarcoated the truth when recounting the events to her parents. While I could empathize with her reluctance to admit her infidelity, I couldn't help but resent her shifting the blame onto me. What would you like me to do, Clifford? Prove she's lying or confess to my own mistake? I just want some clarity, some facts to understand the situation better, Clifford replied. What did she say about her friend? I asked. She insists he was just a friend from work, that you misinterpreted the situation. Clifford, she had over 80 phone calls with this friend in the past month. How many times did she call you or her mother? They both turned to Joyce, who avoided their gaze. Does that sound like an occasional drinking buddy to you? Silence filled the room as I pulled out Kevin's cell phone. Caroline, can you read text messages? Here's one sent to her friend after I kicked her out. Why don't you share it with everyone? Dear Kevin, sorry for the trouble. Love, Joyce. Caroline read aloud before returning the phone to me. Does that sound like a casual friend? I questioned. Joyce buried her face in her hands while Clifford shook his head slowly. A couple of weeks back, Joyce and Stella claimed they were going shopping at the King of Prussia Mall. The twins begged to join, but their mother refused. Here are some photos from that outing. I passed 6 photos to Clifford, who examined them before passing them to Monica and Caroline. This doesn't look like King of Prussia. It's Noble's Grove. Damn it, Joyce, what's going on? I exclaimed. Monica, who had been silent until then, spoke up. Joyce, in every picture, you're clinging onto this man's arm like your life depends on it. That's not what friends do. It's clear this Kevin guy is more than just a friend. What were you trying to pull? Tears streamed down Joyce's face, her hopes dashed by the unexpected revelation of the photos. I have a few more from different occasions. 2 are from Olive Garden and 1 from Red Lobster. Thankfully, my dear wife is fully clothed in all of them, I added. I think we've seen enough, Jason. I apologize for dragging you into this, Clifford said, his disappointment evident. As I rose to leave, Joyce fled the room, sobbing uncontrollably. Clifford accompanied me to the door. Jason, I'm sorry we can't undo what's happened, but I assure you it won't be ignored, he said, shaking my hand before I departed. Back home, Mom and Brian had set up a rollaway bed in the den where I kept the computer. Brian had brought over a stack of his clothes from his house, as Stella wasn't there. The most intriguing thing awaited me in the mail, addressed to Joyce, an official envelope from the passport department. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't resist opening it. Inside was a family passport with a photo of Joyce and the girls. I recalled them mentioning getting a picture taken, but I never imagined it was for this purpose. Naturally, there was no passport for me in the envelope. I immediately phoned Clifford and instructed him to inform Joyce about her passport's arrival. If she wanted it, she could send Kevin to retrieve it from the house. I'd only hand it over to him. Typically, I'd have been at work when the mail came, none the wiser about her receiving it. Clifford mentioned they'd asked Joyce to find alternative accommodation. They had no clue where she'd go. It seemed they were rather annoyed with their daughter. He assured me he'd pass on the message about the passport. Dinner conversation revolved mostly around the girls. A lady from Family Services visited us at school today, Batty said, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. Care to elaborate? Did she speak to you both together or separately? I inquired. Both of us at once. Her name was Jenny. She mentioned you went to high school together, Bridget chimed in. We did attend the same high school, but we weren't together, I clarified, earning a scowl from Bridget for my sarcasm. What did she want to discuss? I asked. You. That's all she talked about. Batty and I both thought she liked you, Bridget replied. She spoke to us for over an hour. We missed gym and part of geography, Batty added, both girls talking at once, making it challenging to keep up. Dinner was interrupted by a call from Caroline, seeking a conversation. We met at McDonald's, settling into a corner table with steaming cups of coffee. Joyce asked me to try to explain what's going on. She couldn't do it herself, Caroline began. I might sound foolish, but if I have questions, how will you answer them? I asked. I don't know if I can. I'll just talk, and you listen. I'm sure I'll mess up some of it. It sounded like gibberish when she told me, Caroline replied. You're setting me up to hear excuses and justifications, not answers, I remarked. I always knew you were sharp, Jason, Caroline said with a smile. Let's get it over with. I have other things to do, I said, eager to move forward. First, she pins it all on Stella. Stella started cheating on Brian, making it seem thrilling and romantic. Joyce claimed she'd never experienced excitement and romance, just her love and reliability. When Kevin Scott joined Russell, Stella convinced Joyce to join them for drinks and meals out. During these outings, Stella and Charles would often slip away for intimacy, leaving Joyce and Kevin alone. Eventually, Joyce and Kevin started fooling around too, leading to a full-blown affair. Once it began, she couldn't or didn't want to stop it. Kevin dazzled her with tales of his adventures and future plans. She wanted to be part of it all. When he asked her to go to Spain, she eagerly agreed. The main issue wasn't leaving you, but leaving the girls. She knew you'd never allow them to go overseas, so she planned to make you appear like a bad father. Now she realizes it was a mistake. After speaking to the girls, she saw they were closer to you than her. She's willing to forego attempting to take the twins if you agree to a divorce with no strings attached. That's it. Pretty much, yep. Okay. Tell her to go ahead and file the papers. I won't contest it if it's as you described. Oh, Jason. One more thing. Joyce wants her passport. Do you have it? Everything started to make sense. I didn't know her exact plan, but I suspected she hadn't given up on taking the girls. They'd resist fiercely unless she had a plan. The family passport was crucial. Caroline, my coffee's cold. I'm heading home for a hot shower. Don't call me again. Jason, what's wrong? What did I do to upset you? You damn well know what you did. Do you both think I'm that foolish? Go back to your sister and tell her she'll never get her hands on my daughters. Since you chose to assist her, I'll have to ask you never to speak to my girls again. Caroline was on her cell as I left McDonald's. I could only guess whom she was calling. I reached the family services office before it opened. Couldn't stay away from me, could you? Jenny greeted me, entering with a bright smile and a Starbucks cup in hand. She motioned for me to sit and apologized for not bringing an extra coffee. I suppose you know I spoke to your daughters yesterday, she asked. I nodded, feeling somewhat tongue-tied and out of my element. It seemed I always had difficulty conversing with her, just as I did the last time we talked. Spending my life with Joyce left me lacking in social skills with other women, and it seemed I was paying for it now. Is everything all right, Jason? Jenny inquired. Other than everything, no, I replied, struggling to articulate my thoughts. I'm sorry, Jenny. I think I better go. My head's not into all of this morning. I'll call you later, I said, deciding to leave the office. Before you leave, I want you to know that I'm arranging a restraining order against your wife. I can't prevent her from seeing the girls, but I can stop her from taking them out of state or restricting your access to them. It'll be served to her by noon, Jenny informed me. Despite feeling relieved, I left the office. I headed to the nearest Starbucks, craving the comforting aroma of coffee. Everything seemed under control until today. Now, I felt overwhelmed and disheartened. After driving aimlessly for a while, I headed home. Brian informed me that Stella had returned to her parents' house near Ephrata, so he was moving back into his own place temporarily. He spent the morning dealing with the bank, insurance company, and lawyer's office, hoping to secure some compensation from Russell. Unfortunately, his lawyer warned it would be a tough battle without a company policy against fraternization. Brian swung by the hospital and learned that Charles was being discharged. As Charles's wife handled the paperwork, she spotted Brian and approached him. She carefully explained that she was attempting to persuade Charles to drop the charges against Brian. Brian was taken aback when she thanked him for his assistance. It seemed she had been trying to help Charles straighten out for years, to no avail. After Brian left, I found solace on the front porch, nursing a beer. Mom brought out a meatloaf sandwich and joined me, silently offering her support. We both had a beer, and she mentioned Dad would be over for dinner and staying the night. When Jenny Martinez arrived, Mom retreated into the house. Jenny declined the cold beer I offered and settled beside me. After a moment's silence, she spoke. I served the papers on Joyce about an hour ago. She was furious. She's staying with her sister, by the way. I finished my beer. I guess that's something, but why do I feel so awful? In cases like this, there's no real silver lining, Jason, just varying degrees of hardship, Jenny replied. I hesitated, then retrieved another beer from the cooler, only to reconsider and put it back. Could you visit the girls and explain everything? I asked. I get along with them, but no matter how carefully I phrase it, it might come off as an attack on their mother. I don't want to alienate them. How about 7 tonight? Jenny suggested. I nodded as she headed back to her car. Halfway there, she glanced back, a promising sign that made me smile. She returned the gesture before driving off. That evening, Jenny visited and spent considerable time with Batty and Bridget. Meanwhile, Brian and I busied ourselves clearing out his house of anything belonging to Stella or reminiscent of her. Jenny began visiting the house several times a week, gradually spending as much time with my mom as with the girls. I noticed she was purposefully ignoring me. I was okay with that, but it piqued my curiosity. One evening, after putting the girls to bed, she sat beside me. Feeling the need to break the silence, I was about to speak when she beat me to it. "Do you have any wine?" she asked. Sort of, I replied, my conversational skills still lacking finesse. "What does that mean?" she inquired. "I don't have anything with a cork. Just wine with screw tops, I admitted. She chuckled. That'll do. Get me something red, will you? And bring the bottle. The bottle was more like a jug, but she didn't seem to mind. I poured, and we sipped. Summoning my courage, I finally broached the topic. I suppose the girls benefit a lot from your visits. How long do you think you'll need to keep seeing them? I asked. Oh, the twins are fine. They don't need me. I come here to see you, she confessed. I don't understand. You hardly talk to me when you're here, I remarked. I thought that's what you wanted, she responded. Not really. I was just worried you had rules against fraternizing with clients, I admitted. Her laughter eased the tension between us. I'm surprised you haven't asked to see my tattoos, she teased. What tattoos? I asked, playing along. It was clear she was trying to initiate a lighthearted conversation to relax me, and I appreciated it. I have 4 of them from high school. 3 are easy to find, but one's a bit more hidden, she explained. Are you going to show them to me, or do I need to search? I joked. It's more fun if you look, but I might need a bit more wine for that, she teased back. We both laughed as I filled her glass to the brim. The thrill of the hunt intensified as we tiptoed around, ensuring not to disturb the sleeping girls. Jenny's 4th tattoo was indeed in a very intimate spot, and I found myself admiring it for a while before she gently pushed me away. She left before the twins woke up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they might have been aware of what transpired. I instructed my lawyer from the telephone book to finalize the divorce papers and have them served. Joyce would have to accept my terms or handle it herself. She was still residing with Caroline when the papers arrived. There was no response, not even a phone call. Several more weeks passed, and my relationship with my dad deteriorated. Mom spent more time at his place than at mine. Fortunately, school was ending for the year, so the girls moved in with her for the summer. By summer's end, we moved Dad into an assisted living facility. Brian and I helped Mom prepare the family house for sale, and she moved back in with me. Throughout the summer, Jenny continued visiting the girls at Mom's place, spending several nights a week with me. They enjoyed outings together, and I was grateful for the attention Bridget and Batty received. I no longer felt jealous of their bond, and I suspected they were aware of the connection between Jenny and me. Joyce called the girls about once a week, but the conversations were brief and strained, according to Mom. Most of the time, the twins didn't even mention her calls to me. Brian's divorce from Stella was settled, but I remained uncertain about the status of mine. Meanwhile, Brian expressed his desire to establish his own surveying business and proposed that I join him. However, I lacked the funds to invest until my mom stepped in. With their finances depleted, she suggested using the money allocated for Dad's Medicare expenses for the business, viewing it as an investment in our future. 3 months later, Brian and I launched our own surveying enterprise, benefiting from my drafting skills, which smoothly transitioned into plot drawing. About a week into the new school semester, the twins received an unexpected visit from their mother. Anticipating a meeting with their counselor Jenny, they were disappointed to find Joyce instead. Despite their efforts to be courteous, the encounter didn't go smoothly. Joyce expressed her love for them, apologized for the circumstances, and promised to keep in touch by sending postcards from her trip to Spain, calling them on their birthdays, and sending extravagant Christmas gifts. The girls recounted her tearful departure. Joyce never directly informed me of her departure, but her parents visited the following week. They apologized for Joyce's actions without defending or justifying them. As Bridget and Batty were their only grandchildren, they expressed their desire to maintain a relationship with them, a request I readily accepted. They mentioned that Caroline was too embarrassed to visit, torn between her loyalty to her sister and her parents. 2 months later, my divorce was finalized. Jenny and I celebrated at Red Lobster, enjoying a rare evening out without the girls. They seemed content with the arrangement and greeted me excitedly upon my return the next morning. Though they didn't say much, their grins spoke volumes, indicating their happiness. A year later, our business was thriving, but sadly, my father passed away. Mom mentioned her desire to relocate to Florida to be with her sister, yet she was hesitant to leave the girls. To my surprise, the twins insisted that Grandma should go, explaining that Jenny could step in despite her culinary skills not matching up to Mom's. They also declared they were old enough for separate rooms, a clear and sensible plan. The girls received birthday cards from their mother, but no phone call. Joyce flooded them with postcards featuring Spanish windmills, a detail I couldn't quite grasp the significance of. For Christmas, she sent 2 intricately embroidered dresses, though she hadn't accounted for the growth spurt typical of girls entering their teenage years. Yet neither of them seemed disappointed by the ill-fitting garments. Our business flourished, with Russell Engineering emerging as our primary client. Brian was pleased to hear that Charles had taken up a teaching position in electronics at the Lebanon County Vocational School, a notable step down from his previous role. Charles was no longer married, while Stella had remarried and relocated to California. Kevin Scott's tenure at his new job didn't even last 6 months, and his current whereabouts in the States remained a mystery. Brian, feeling I had been too lenient with Kevin, reached out to their high school alumni association in hopes of uncovering more information. Despite Kevin's disappearance, the girls continued to receive postcards adorned with windmills. However, these cards lacked any specific details, containing only generic sentiments. Clifford informed me that Joyce had contacted the girls multiple times, now working for a travel agency in Barcelona. Yet, she never mentioned Kevin or provided any insight into their relationship's fate. Jenny and I decided on a quiet marriage trip to Maryland, and within a year, she was expecting. Bridget and Batty were thrilled at the prospect of having a little goth sister, a private joke they shared with their new mom, excluding me from the loop. As for the Spanish windmills, their significance remained elusive to me. The third story. Fine, I said flatly. Gina's voice grew louder. Fine? Did you even hear what I said? Yes, dear. You're going on a date this Friday with another man. And you're okay with that? Her surprise was palpable. Not at all, but what choice do I have? As you pointed out, I don't control you. You're your own person. Your tone and expression make it clear you're determined to go through with it, so what other option do I have? I'll be back. Don't let your fragile male ego get in the way. I love you, and I'll make this up to you, you'll see. So you know it's wrong, I replied calmly. What do you mean? I never said that. I deserve this. Will your parents and my parents agree with you? Gina looked down, unable to answer, clearly indicating guilt. I let the silence linger, knowing she was wrestling with her conscience. You know, and I know they won't. You admitted what you're doing is wrong when you said you'll make it up to me. What? When? Why else would you need to make it up to me? If it were just lunch with friends or a haircut, there'd be no need. You said it because you know it's wrong, and that makes you an unethical person. Her uncertainty seeped through in her voice, but you said I could do it. No, I never did, and I never will. I only acknowledged that I can't stop you. I do not approve. I wish you would stay with me or go out with me. We could go to the same restaurant and the same club afterward. But it's not about the meal or the dancing, is it? It's about the company you prefer, and that company isn't me. You want him, right? Once more, she lowered her head in silence. What's his name, anyway? It's not important. Fine, I won't argue about that. Just know this. I don't want you to go with Mr. P. Hound, and there will be consequences if you do. What consequences? Like you and Mr. Hound, I won't say. You're not just beautiful, you're intelligent too. I've told you that countless times, not because I have to, but because I mean it. I'll leave it to you to figure out the consequences of choosing him over me. You're bluffing. You love me. You always give me what I want. Well, I want this, and like I said, I'll be back, and we'll love each other and grow old together. I can't stop you from making foolish choices, but you've been warned. You're on your own. With that, I grabbed my keys and left before she could say another word. The atmosphere in the apartment throughout the entire week was undeniably frosty. Thursday night, I gathered my belongings and relocated to the guest room. What's going on, Felix? She questioned. Pausing with a handful of clothes, I regarded her with a hint of exasperation. Looks like I overestimated your comprehension. What do you think I'm doing? Are you leaving? She asked, a hint of concern in her voice. Yes, My wife wants to pursue other relationships. Do you honestly believe I'd share a bed with a woman who's straying? Not a chance." Her tone took on a mocking, childish lilt. "You're such a little boy, afraid your little ego will get hurt." Without a word, I placed the clothes in the spare closet and returned for another load. "So now you're punishing the big bad witch with your silence," she smirked. "Can you see how pathetic you are?" "Consequences," was my only retort. She couldn't claim ignorance, she'd been warned. Friday afternoon, I left work early and headed to an upscale unisex salon, treating myself to a professional contemporary haircut, a precise straight razor shave, and a subtle manicure. No flashy nail polish, though. Next door, at the men's clothing store, I selected a smart casual button-down shirt, pants, and jacket. While I briefly considered new shoes, I reasoned that fresh kicks and dancing might not mesh well, so I passed on that idea. On the way home, I swung by the car wash for a thorough deep clean, leaving my truck looking immaculate. Back at home, I took a refreshing shower. As I heard Gina arrive and head for her own shower, I descended to the living room and waited. Half an hour later, she descended in a new little black dress I hadn't seen before, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of cleavage. Pausing on the final step, she looked at me, seemingly expecting a compliment. When I remained silent, she glanced at me again, her eyes widening. "Wow, you look great. Where are you off to?" "Out. What else?" I parodied her condescending tone. "Did you think your clueless husband would just sit at home, twiddling his thumbs, waiting for you to grace us with your presence?" Shaking my head, I opened the door to the garage and added curtly, "And here I thought you were perceptive. How mistaken can one person be?" Well, I don't want to keep Melissa waiting. With a satisfied smile, I slipped into my spotless truck, hearing her scream in the background. Gotcha. Melissa and I enjoyed a delightful evening at a wine bar, known for its light dinners and live piano performances on weekends, which livened up its modest dance floor. Our rapport at work had already revealed that conversation flowed effortlessly between us. Even more gratifying was her appreciation for my sense of humor. It may sound like a cliché, but it's undeniably true. There are few things as heartwarming for a man as a woman who laughs at his jokes. We clicked effortlessly, and on more than one occasion, our lips brushed gently against ears, cheeks, and lips, igniting a spark between us that felt nothing short of magical. However, we both acknowledged the reality that I was still married, and we respected the boundaries that entailed. So, we spent the evening leisurely, sipping wine and indulging in playful flirtation with our eyes as we conversed. As I dropped Melissa off at her apartment, she did me a favor by dabbing a drop of her perfume on my shirt and leaving traces of her freshly applied lipstick on my collar, neck, and cheek. With a playful peck on the cheek, she bid me goodnight. "Go get her, Tiger," she teased. We shared a laugh as I climbed into my truck and headed home. It was barely 10 when I strolled into the Big Chill. "Where the hell have you been?" Gina demanded. "None of your business," I retorted, unfazed. "You never disclosed where you went with your mysterious Mr. P-Hound. I would have asked if you used protection, but frankly, I couldn't care less if you suffer the consequences, because I'm done with your deceitful, cheating ways. So, I couldn't care less about your whereabouts, activities, or companions. I had an amazing time, and for that, I thank you very much." "What do you mean, thank me?" Gina's voice trembled with frustration. "Don't you see? If you hadn't foolishly suggested opening up our marriage, I wouldn't have had the chance to get to know Melissa better. What an incredible woman. Smoking hot. Oh, thank you, dear." "Arg." Gina let out a piercing scream, causing me to wonder if a neighbor might call the police. You know, I despise her. Why do you think she was the first person I called?" Astonished, Gina stared at me, her expression a mix of shock and disbelief. What? What did you say?" "Once again, I seem to have overestimated your intellect. Pull yourself together for a moment. This isn't rocket science. You decided to reject me and flaunt it by dolling up for some anonymous jerk, wearing outfits you've never worn for me, and now you're surprised that I followed suit. You altered the terms of our marriage against my wishes, and I simply mirrored your actions. The only difference is I had the decency to tell you who I went out with. For some strange reason, you're too ashamed of your partners to reveal their identities. So, Ms. Rocket Scientist, what exactly is your issue? The wind was knocked out of Gina's sails, and tears welled up in her eyes. Without giving her a chance to respond, I pressed on. Let me guess, Jack Robinson didn't sweep you off your feet like you'd hoped. Another squeal, this time filled with anguish, pierced the air, accompanied by hands clasped over her mouth. How did you find out? Jenna exclaimed. In a tone reminiscent of a game show announcer, I declared, and once again, your intellectual shortcomings are laid bare for all to see. Consider, if you will, you work in an office with at least 10 other women, and Jack is renowned as the biggest womanizer in the world. Everyone there knows who's involved with whom, and gossip runs rampant. You used to partake in it as well. So, my dear, did you truly believe you'd be an exception? For over a month, several of your supposed friends have been informing me of your susceptibility to Jack's charms, suggesting you were not only falling for his manipulations, but actively seeking them out. Googly eyes, as one of your coworkers put it. Who knows? Perhaps he left her for you. Hell hath no fury, and all that. Word on the street was that tonight was the night he intended to claim you as his own, with a room reserved at the Marriott. Apparently, he prefers the Marriott for the initial encounter, followed by Motel 6 or the woman's residence. Were you unaware of that? Her widened eyes betrayed her shock and dismay at being exposed as naive, gullible, and an easy target. Tears streamed down her face. Oh, Felix, I'm so sorry. You're right, I've been such a fool. How can you stand to be married to such a stupid woman like me? Ah, Jaina, here's the good news. I don't have to. I don't need to remain married to your foolish, promiscuous self. Divorce papers will be served to you tomorrow morning. We're only renting this house, and we have 3 more months on the lease, so you can either renew it or use the time to find something more suitable. Her voice trembled as she asked, Where will you go? Melissa has offered me a place to stay while I sort things out. She has a spare bedroom she's using as an office. Once the divorce is finalized, she suggested we explore more favorable terms. Very promising ones, I must say. I'm looking forward to delving into them further. Everything else you and I have, we'll just split down the middle. Now you can sleep with whoever you want, and you won't have to endure the reproaches of a wimpy husband. I hope Jack is worth it. Epilogue. I convened with some of the other husbands who fell prey to Jack, also known as Mr. Hound. One evening after dinner, he discovered his car vandalized, windows shattered, paint scratched, baby excrement smeared on the seats, wheels stolen, and various other damages. As he assessed the destruction, 3 masked assailants, all clad in black, silently robbed him and subjected him to a severe beating. The police were confounded as to why the attackers, seemingly after his wallet and counterfeit Rolex, would also inflict such brutal injuries to his groin. With no witnesses and the parking lot cameras defaced, their investigation hit a dead end. Meanwhile, the 4 spouses of his victims were engaged in a poker game at one of their homes. Upon his recovery, Jack relocated out of state. His whereabouts remain unknown and largely irrelevant. Jaina, having secured an apartment, eventually moved out. Upon realizing my contentment with Melissa, she too departed for another state. Our paths never crossed again. I stayed with Melissa for a period, but we mutually agreed that short-term enjoyment didn't necessarily equate to long-term compatibility. Consequently, I found a townhouse nearby and settled there. As time passed, I grew older, wiser, and more physically fit. I forged a strong connection with a fellow member of my gym. Naturally, one thing led to another, and I discovered happiness with someone who possessed genuine intelligence and unwavering loyalty. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.